Welcome back to the channel. Don't smoke, kids, it's not good for you. I think it's becoming abundantly clear to anybody with a functioning brain, that a sizable majority of the ills of human society are a direct result of government. But I think the unfortunate thing about it is that typically those sort of realizations are always followed by an effort to justify the existence of the state. So you always hear people saying, well, it's a necessary evil, who would pay for the roads if everybody didn't get robbed of half of the money that they earn, right? How would we protect ourselves from other roving gangs of criminals and of marauders and war criminals? How do we handle those sorts of situations? We need free healthcare, right? It's always the lefties that say, can we have free healthcare? We need free healthcare. Why are we bombing people on the other side of the world instead of paying for shitty centralized healthcare that doesn't work? But people always, people will critique the current system. They'll find all manner of different reasons and ways in which it doesn't function the way that they want it to function. But then they'll always come back with, their own idea. Like, if only things were my way. If only things function in the way that I think that they should function. If I had the ring of power, then things would be different, right? Then things would be good. If only I had the reins of power and I get to call the shots and make all of the decisions, then things would be good, right? I would know how to most accurately and most efficiently allocate all of the resources that would be given to me. And I would be the best at making, or at least maybe perhaps we're not that narcissistic, right? We're just going to say, I would do a much better job at allocating the resources that are squandered by this government if only I had the power, right? And people keep circling back to that, no matter how much of a critique, no matter how many issues that they see with the way things are currently with the current system, they never really, unless they're anarchists, right? They never really come to the ultimate conclusion. And if we're again to use the analogy of the Lord of the Rings, right, the Ring of Power, they never come to the conclusion that it's the institution in and of itself of authority that is the problem. It's always, if I sat at the throne, if I had the Ring of Power, then things would be different. Then we would all be singing Kumbaya around the campfire, and things would be great, right? And it's sad that people aren't catching on and aren't coming to this correct, in my eyes, of course, as an anarchist, conclusion that there is no such thing as legitimate government. Like, there's self-government, self-governance, right? You owning yourself, you owning your own life, making your own decisions about your own life, the things that you genuinely and rightfully own, right? I guess that would be the only, legitimate government that I would be able to speak of. But all forms of coercive, centralized government, aka some people claiming the moral right to control and to dictate unto others how they need to exist, and other people having the ostensible moral obligation to obey. If you're an anarchist, you realize that for what it is, and it's nothing short, nothing less than slavery, if we're really going to cut down to brass tacks. Now, most people are going to say, oh, no, that's crazy. Oh, you're equating government to government works for us. Government is of the people, by the people, for the, all that. Right. Yep. Government is of the people, for the people, by the people, and the people are retarded. It hasn't. If you look at history, if you look at history, literally flip to any book, or flip to any page of the massive book of history, right? And not the shitty books that we get at, public schools that are completely filtered through and show us a false image of true history, right? If we had an actual tome of all of human history, the way that it happened, right? You flip to any page of that goddamn book, and it's exceedingly obvious that is not what government does. And I watched a program by James Corbett of CorbettReport.com. If you don't know him, definitely look him up. Fantastic source of information. He made a video recently where he was describing, the title of the video was "The Purpose of a System is What It Does." Now, at face value, that statement might seem pretty very simple and very stupid, right? Oh, well, of course that's the case. Of course the purpose of this system is what it does. Like, what do you mean? Well, extrapolating from just that face value title of the the video, he goes into basically things like, for example, MAGA, right? Making America Great Again movement. And he basically showcases that as a social phenomena, a movement, if you can call it that, a social phenomena where, again, the ostensible point of said movement is to improve the condition of society, right? Make America great again, end the foreign engagements, improve the economy, right? Make things affordable again, make people healthier, take the artificial garbage out of food and GMOs out of food and make things healthy again, and just all the kinds of prosperity, all those wonderful things, right? That was the ostensible reason for the MAGA movement. It's the ostensible reason for why Trump was elected both times, right? Now, again, if we were to open the tome of of history, and we look back at the last decade, what has actually happened, right? And especially the last 2 years, right? Well, we had COVID, right? And we had Operation Warp Speed by Trump, where he was the front runner of getting the vaccines out to everybody, and proliferated those, and all the stimulus checks, right, that everybody got, which completely destroyed the economy and generated the largest wealth transfer in human history. And then fast forward to most recently now, where where the economy is in the shitter completely. We have a new war, right? Remember the whole ostensible, anti-war stance that Trump had, end all engagement, bring him home, all that shit, right? Well, we have a new war now. The Strait of Hormuz is closed, which is going to destroy the majority of oil production in the world, and starve billions of people. And I could keep going, right? All kinds of different broken promises, all kinds of things that have happened that were the opposite of what was originally promised to us, right? So to bring it back to the whole topic of the purpose of every system is what it does, MAGA did not do, like, that movement did not do the things that it set out to do, or the things that it said it was going to set out to do. What it did was the exact opposite, right? We have the biggest surveillance state in human history that's about to become even bigger, or it's actively becoming even bigger, with Palantir and all of those companies, right? The war again, everything else. So the punchline is the purpose of a system is what it does. What MAGA has done, and not just, I'm not gonna say that it's just MAGA, it's just Trump, it's just not just the right. Of course, it's left and right. It's both sides, because both sides are two sides of the same shitbird, which I don't know when people are going to finally realize this. I mean, I know some people are definitely now, and it's more and more people every day, but when it's finally going to be like common knowledge amongst everybody, all of the people that have chosen sides up until this point, I wonder when there's going to be a point where everybody starts to realize it. But what people need to realize, more so than anything, is that the purpose of a system is what it does. MAGA has resulted in a furtherance of the deep state agenda, right? If we're to use the common lingo among the right-wing folks out there, which is accurate. I'm not saying it's not accurate, but the agenda of the deep state has been furthered by MAGA. It's been furthered by the right wing just as much as it was furthered by the left wing. The people on the right, the people who would listen to people like Alex Jones, for example, would always say that, oh my gosh, the liberals are gonna, put in agenda 2030 and the New World Order and the Great Reset and all that kind of stuff, and it's them doing it. Well, now it's becoming ever more obvious that it's not just the left that does it, but it's also the right. And if we are to finally accept that fact, right, and we're to finally accept that this whole notion, this whole just ridiculous notion pushed by organizations like Q, for example, QAnon, that there's these white hats out there that are fighting the good fight, and that they are gonna, all we have to do is just sit down on our camp chairs, right? Bust out the popcorn and just watch the show, right? And once we accept that that's a psyop, once we accept that that's like literally just meant for us to do, like to make us do nothing about the situation, and we accept the fact that this whole system is working flawlessly in that it's doing what it's actually set out to do, which is all governments, and that is to ultimately reach the absolute pinnacle of totalitarian control, to where they control every single aspect of all life, basically. Not even just human life, but all life whatsoever. If we were to accept that about government, that it's just this cancer that never stops growing until the host is dead, then maybe we could start going in the correct direction, the right direction. But until then, we are just going to have to continue to suffer, unfortunately, and continue to scratch our heads as we suffer and wonder, like, oh my gosh, like, why do we keep coming back to the same spot over and over and over again in this cycle of tyranny, and then relative freedom, and then back to tyranny, and then so on and so forth, and in between having millions and millions of people die as a result. I hope that we have more anarchists that come to this realization, more voluntarists, people who believe in voluntary interactions between consenting adults, so that we can finally put an end to this endless cycle that just continues to repeat and repeat. But we'll see if that happens or not. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.